everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Mystic Megan and today I will be showing you how to reconnect with your tarot or oracle deck. So welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Megan and I create videos about all things tarot and divination. For my returning viewers, you may notice that there's something a little bit different here. That's right, I have finished my move back to Australia from Japan. After spending 8 years building my life in Japan, to pack it up and relocate the entire thing back to Australia was a massive transition and obviously a big life change. During that time, I didn't really pick up my tarot cards for a good 2 to 3 months, maybe even more, because they were packed in boxes being sent off to Australia or just waiting around in boxes ready to be unpacked. I have recently opened up my cards and got them out, but I've kind of just sat there and looked at them and didn't really know where to start. Despite using these decks over and over again, I just felt like I couldn't just pick up a deck and start reading with it. I really felt drawn to spending a bit of time with each of my decks and reconnecting and asking each deck what kind of purpose, what kind of reading do they want to provide to me as I move on. So I've done this particular routine with a couple of my decks now, but I still have quite a few decks to go. This is going to be an ongoing process for me because of how many cards that I actually have. But I'm really excited to be able to get to know each deck again and really find the purpose and calling for each of my tarot decks. So today's deck I'm going to be showing you will be Reconnecting with Orient Animal Tarot. I haven't really gotten this deck out much. I've gotten a couple decks out, but this particular deck, I really love the illustrations on it, so I really kind of wanted to save this for a video. So I'm going to get out the cards. First of all, I want to just spend some time handling, feeling the energy from the deck, shuffling, just seeing how the deck feels. Now, when you're shuffling tarot cards, there are some things you really want to be looking out for. Whether the cards are clumping, whether falling out nicely, perhaps if some cards jump out at you, these cards can mean something significant. But at the moment, even if cards are jumping out at me, I'm not going to be looking at them just because that's not the point of this shuffle. I'm not asking any questions. I'm just spending some time feeling the cards and reconnecting with the energy of the cards. Now, I am a very messy shuffler at the best of days, but this is just reconnecting with the energy. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do after I've done a bit of a shuffle is that I'm going to go through each and every card one by one and just say the name of the card and say out loud what I feel like this card is representing. Now, I personally like to say these things out loud because and this comes from learning another language. When you say things out loud, you're also hearing them and it's easier for you to absorb and remember. So as I said, I'm just going to pull out each card, go through them one by one, saying out loud what the card is, and the feelings and messages that I'm getting from each card. So first we have the 10 of Swords, a completion for better or for worse. King of Wands, pride, action, bravery. Six of Pentacles, contribution, teamwork, sharing. So the next is Six of Cups. So if I come across a card which I'm having a little bit of trouble connecting with, or it's just kind of on the tip of my tongue, or I'm just not getting a clear image, then I will actually put that card aside and I will revisit that card later on. So I'm not going to sit here and go through each and every card with you guys, but what I am going to do is I'm going to do that now, and then we're going to fast forward and I'm going to show you what I do with these cards over here. One thing I do want to jump in and say is that for me personally, each deck has its own personality. I do read the imagery very intuitively. So not only will I be reading the card from the traditional Rider-Waite meanings, but I will be looking at the imagery and kind of coming up with some more precise reading into this card. So each deck will have a slightly different variation for meaning. For me in particular, maybe not everyone does it this way, but that is why I have so many decks. Each deck does represent something a little bit different and will read a little bit differently depending on the card. So now I'm going to get out the book and I am going to be looking up these cards here. So first we're going to look up the Six of Swords. Now, the reason why this card here, I was having a little trouble with this, is because I feel like this card doesn't really visually represent the Rider-Waite interpretation of Six of Swords. So there's obviously a different message to be had here. So I'm going to look into the creator's inspiration, why they have chosen this particular image, and how they interpret the card personally. So the anglerfish is swimming. So we do have the swimming as a representation of the journey and the movement. And the anglerfish survives in the darkness. So the fact that they've chosen a deep sea fish, basically I can then now associate the deep sea fish with moving through the unknown, moving through the darkness. And now I do feel like I didn't study this deck to the same degree that I should have when I first got these cards. So going back and actually having a look at each and every one of these cards is actually something that I really needed to do, regardless of my transition, regardless of what has been happening in my life recently. So we have the Five of Swords. So she's got the stingray or the manta ray, and then the Five Swords. I I'm not really getting that association, so I'm just once again going to read through how the artist and creator has created this card and the reasons for them choosing this particular artwork. Okay, so the manta ray is a very peaceful creature, essentially, and they often get mistaken for being a stingray. So they often get mistaken for being dangerous, but they do, however, they do try to evade confrontation. That being said, you know, there's no winners or losers, whether you have a conflict or not. Sometimes that, I mean, this is coming from me, sometimes even avoiding conflict can actually create more conflict. So this card is really kind of asking you to reflect on why you're trying to run away, right? Why you're trying to avoid things. So then I'm going to move through the same process with the rest of these cards. And then we are going to pull a couple of cards for a very small deck interview to ask the deck how it wants to serve me, how it wants to communicate and guide me moving forward. Now that I've done that, I'm going to give the cards a good shuffle and move on to a quick deck interview. So I'm only going to be pulling 2 cards. It's not going to be an extensive deck interview because I already know the deck fairly well. So I just really need to reconnect with the energy and the deck's intentions. So let's start shuffling. Now I have noticed by shuffling them that way that essentially it does bend the cards. So if you are somebody who's shuffling that way, maybe shuffling them in the opposite direction will prevent the cards from bending and warping it too much. I do try to take as much care of my cards as possible. So I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'm going to move on to... This deck is actually... was shuffling really well. Okay, let's pull out some cards. Now, okay, so I'm going to be asking 2 questions. First question is going to be, what type of reading does the deck want to be used for? So there are obviously different parts of life, different aspects of life that each deck can specifically cater for. So, and then the second question I will be asking is what type of guidance this deck would like to provide. So sometimes decks have a different energetic field and intention, and sometimes some decks are leaning towards shadow work, exploring your inner self, your inner shadow, and overcoming your fears, whereas other decks lean more towards the more happier energy, the joy, finding connection, finding the things that really match with you. For me, those are the 2 points that are important that I know about each one of my decks. So what kinds of readings would you like to be used for? What kinds of readings would you like to be used for? Oh, there we have it. So what types of readings would you like to be used for? We have the moon. So this is really telling me that this is a very intuitive deck. This is very connected with feminine energy, intuition, and knowing. It's a deck that wants to give you some insight on the underlying influences that, you know, maybe influencing your question or influencing your situation. It wants to give you a broader perspective and some understanding. Okay. So the next question is, what type of guidance? That came out really quickly. So we have the Chariot. So that means this deck really wants to help you on a journey, really wants to help you to move towards your goals, and move towards the things that you want to. It wants to help you be decisive. So what we can see here with both of these cards, that this deck specifically would like to be doing readings where it was going to help you make decisions and move towards your goals, and the things that are going to make you happy, by giving you insight on the underlying influences and things that are going on. I really see this deck as a deck that really wants to soothe you and just assure you to continue to move forward. So that was me reconnecting with my Orange Animal Tarot deck. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like. If you want to see more content like this, please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well, so I know that you're there. And if you have any video suggestions, please leave that in the comments below. And I'll see you next time.